Hi, my name is Aaron Miller, and today I'll be talking to you about domestic violence. In today's world, domestic violence is a costly and persistent problem all over the United States, leaving victims to suffer from pain and abuse. Domestic violence can be defined as a pattern of abusive behavior in any relationship that is used by one partner to gain or maintain power and control over another intimate partner. Domestic violence occurs at all around the world and does not discriminate against race, sex, or even economic background. It does not care if you've been with a person for 6 years or 6 months. And although the person abused may not seem affected, the abuser could have unimaginable effects on the abusee. According to the Huffington Post, the number of women in the U.S. experience physical violence by an intimate partner is 4,774,000. Typically, the abuser during the time that they're being abusive, has taken into account and actions that they are implementing on the person that they are abusing. This way of thinking is called the rational choice theory, which Max Weber was famous for coining. Rational choice theory is defined as attempts to explain all conforming and deviant social phenomenons in terms of how self-interested individuals make choices under the influence of their preferences, meaning for every action an individual makes, that they make that choice because it's the best rational decision for them at the time. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, 90% of the abusers do not have criminal records, and these abusers are generally law-abiding citizens. So, in no means does this condone an individual's rational choice when they're being abusive. Rather, they're simply making the decision to be abusive by themselves. A topic that is generally overlooked when it comes to abusive relationships is the fact that the abuser is affecting more than their physical life. They can be affecting them financially as well. Statistically speaking, the average cost of emergency care for an intimate partner in an abusive violence related incident for women is $948, which is almost $1,000 if you think about it, for being hit by your own husband. The average cost for men is $387. This difference could be attributed to the fact that men are typically stronger and more aggressive than females, and that's why we tend to stick to more physical abuse rather than mental. But that's disturbing enough. The estimated cost of incidents of an intimate partner violence perpetrated against women in the U.S. in 1995 alone is $5,800 trillion. And according to the Washington Post, 17% of women physically abused by their partners lost time paid at work. If you were to take away domestic violence as a whole in America, it would pretty much erase 1/3 of our country's debt. That's 1/3. Imagine what we could do with that. Unfortunately, when it comes to domestic violence entering a house, the abuse doesn't stop at the wife or husband. According to childhelp.com or Child Help, 28% of children are subjected to physical abuse, while 21% are victims of sexual abuse. 10.6% of victims are victims of emotional abuse, while the other 24.7% are victims of physical and emotional neglect. Child Health also reported that in 2012, the state agency found that an estimated 686,000 victims of child maltreatment. This is enough kids to fill 10 modern-day football stadiums just in the United States alone. Most people don't really take in the consideration when it comes to the fact of abusing a child. As a student in college, I have a 7-year-old nephew who was subject to physical abuse, and I can tell you that a kid's mind is like a sponge, and the way that kid grows up is the way that he's going to almost be for the rest of his life. The way that a kid grows up is almost like the mold for his adulthood. And so when a child is abused, he only knows that kind of lifestyle, and therefore he goes on to repeat that kind of lifestyle. And this is what we call social learning theory. Sociology.com defines the social learning theory as a theory that attempts to explain socialization and the effects of development of the self, meaning individuals are shaped by their society. So what I mean by this is that if a kid is to grow up in an abusive house, the kid is gonna, for one, he's gonna have more effect happening to him. Maybe not immediately, but definitely down the road, to where that kid's gonna be either he might have depression. He could just have a lot more psychological effects from being abused as a child than an adult being abused, because your childhood is the molding of your adulthood. Socializing is a series of behavior of exchanges. During these exchanges, both individuals try to maximize their rewards and also try to minimize their costs at the same time. In this circumstance, the abuser might be trying to get what the other individual to give him money, but if the abusee says no to the abuser, then they will more likely get mad and resulting in another abusive interaction. This abuser is doing what they want while the other person is trying to maintain their status as, being in that relationship. And this abuser is trying to be the alpha of the house, the big dog that runs everything. But if the abuser threatens to call the police, then the abuser rethinks their actions and has to make a new decision accordingly. And this would be called the exchange theory. The exchange theory is defined as an individual's attempt to maximize their rewards and minimize their costs, meaning that any individual will use rational choice theory and formal social control in order to decide their best possible outcomes to maximize their profits while also minimizing their costs at the lowest rate possible. According to criminal justice websites, individuals will use force and violence in their relationship with intimate and family members if they believe that the rewards of the force and violence outweigh their costs of such behavior. And this is where we get our abuse from today. This is why abusers are doing what they want to today, because they're obviously trying to get what they want across, and obviously have more psychological problems than that. So looking at the big picture, anyone could really be an abuser. It could be your neighbor, it could be your preacher, it could be your mayor, it could be your family member, or even a new spouse. Domestic violence can be a complicated issue, though, and especially when you're in abusive relationships. Many victims are too scared to get out of these relationships because the abuser has threatened them or their loved ones. And this is a problem that millions suffer from and try to make us struggle to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And as a society, we need to raise more money and awareness for gaining help and support for all these victims all over the world, and hopefully it puts an end to this worldwide issue. I mean, like I said, I have a 7-year-old nephew who was a subject of domestic violence, and I can tell you personally, I can't see something like that happen to a kid. So, I mean, why would you not put an end to it? Although victims of domestic violence don't show their past, they might be a tumor of agony growing internally, which could also lead to other ultimate demises. Which, just because you cannot see someone's hardships does not mean that they're not struggling. So stop the silence and end the violence.